Welcome to Legacies, everyone. I'm joined this week by Margaret Brodie and Mikky Rahmberg of Rubicon Organics. Margaret, Mikky, thanks for joining Legacies. This has been a long time in the making.
It has been. We've been talking to coming on, Tom, for, I don't know, quite a while. And I said, the only way that I'm going to come on is if Mikky joins me.
Well, we're happy to have it. And I'm happy to finally meet Mikky. We know that he's got the brains behind the genetics, and you know me, I'm a genetics freak. But first, before we get too far, I just want to remind everyone that Legacies is powered by Aveo, leaders in sustainable vape hardware. Guys, if you could, when I have two guests, it's sometimes interesting just to see where the contrast of what led you to the industry, but specifically Rubicon in this case. I'd love to get your background, and as a buttoned up CPA, Margaret, coming into weed. One thing that I'll say is the vast majority of LPs that are run by CPAs seem to do very well. So anyways, I'll pause there for a second, and if I could just get your background and what led you to Rubicon.
Awesome. Well, we've taken the opposite approaches and we ended up in the same place. So I think that's pretty cool. Both BC born and bred. I'm an ex-rower, so I rode crew all for 8 years competitively through high school and university. Wanted to go to business school, did that, did my CPA, worked in London for almost 7 years, came back to Canada, thought, I was doing that. And then was approached by our second largest shareholder, who was a friend, who said, I'd like you to meet Jesse McConnell. Honestly, it was 2015. I understood the opportunity, but weed was still illegal in Canada for adult use. It was medically legal, and there was a ton of stigma around it. And I met Jesse and I went, I know how I can help you. And so really understood. And I think I was definitely a victim of, I grew up in the 80s with the war on drugs and stigma and all that stuff. Yeah. My views have completely changed. I'm a huge advocate for the sector. Absolutely love what we do. Always wanted to build a business. Building one in our backyard of something that BC can be so proud of our history around. Working with awesome people, bringing something incredible to the world. Kind of living the dream. I gotta say, kind of living the dream. But definitely took as Mikky says sometimes, I'm the suit. And I'm like, I'm not a suit. I'm not in that. When was the last time you saw me in a suit? Right?
Well, I knew that. I think suit's a word we just used from the very beginning. And, it's, we've come from very different backgrounds. I grew up in the game, and, I've seen the ups and downs over the last 25 years. And, I had my first kid, and, after that, legalization was on the horizon, and started to think about, what the other side would look like. And I spent a long time taking meeting after meeting after meeting and not loving what I was hearing. A lot of the same pitches. I could see pretty much instantly that there's probably not a path of success there. I actually ran into a couple people from Rubicon about 7 or 8 months before I joined, and we had a good conversation. It just wasn't the right timing. And, when we did actually sit down and chat, later on, I think the biggest thing that attracted me to Rubicon was they were the only company that said, we want to get better. Like, even though they were in a good position, they're like, we see where we want to go and we need help getting there. And everyone else was like, we're crushing it, we're killing it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I knew they weren't, right? And just that one sentence that they said is what sold me on the company, in all honesty. And, it's been a crazy journey.
Yeah.
When I started, I just wanted to do it for a year so I could get a mortgage under my name for my house.
I remember signing that paperwork incredibly.
So I was like, no matter what, no matter how much I hate it, like, I'm going to do a year and then I don't have to worry about it. And, I fell in love with the challenge. I fell in love with the people, and, I'm super proud to be part of the team. And, I think the dedication and the hard work that so many people in this company have put in for the last 10 years has really put us where we are. Like, weed has never been a 9-to-5 job. And I feel so many companies and so many people think it is, but it's a 365-day-a-year job. And we have so many people in our company that realize that it, I think, is one of our keys to success.
So and I think one of the things I'm gonna add in is I remember I think like probably every other weed company, we had the legacy versus CPG kind of thing for a moment. And I think because of Jesse, our founder, seeing both sides, he
Mm.
really impressed, certainly on me. On I think my first or might have been my second day working with him, I said something about the legacy market, and he said to me, "Those are our patients and the people that got us here, and never disrespect it." And
Uh,
I'll own that I had that attitude. It comes out of stigma, it comes out of all this stuff,
mhm.
and then you've really got to embrace. Like Mickey has way more knowledge about the plant that even although I've been studying it and trying to learn and doing all the things, he's gonna teach me more than I will ever know, and we have to embrace that, and I think he's also like our sort of legacy side has embraced learning what they don't like, where their skills aren't, and so bringing those 2 things together is, I think, more difficult than I think everybody thought it would be easy, and it's not, and that's why a lot of companies haven't done well. You actually need both to come together and respect each other, and we talk a lot internally about respect, and I think it's everything. You can disagree, and you can have huge arguments, and that's absolutely fine as long as it's not about the people, it's about the process and getting the right, better answer, and that's where we get to it. Like, we'll sit around the exec table, and there'll be a huge debate. Mickey will be like, "I'm not comfortable releasing it yet because the quality's not there yet." And
Mm.
we'll have that out, and that's about getting better all the time.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Okay, so Mickey, you touched on something there that really hit me. One, we have similar backgrounds, although I'm not, director cultivation anywhere. It was, right in that transition of legalization. I'm like, I don't want to get caught on the wrong side of this. The last, I've got a family. So good on you for assessing. But I think the biggest one is you're right. So many companies, early days, they all had it nailed. They knew what they were doing. The flower was the best. Everything was great. And it was all puppy dogs and rainbows until you finally get behind the scenes and find out what's actually going on. And in this case, it's good to hear that Rubicon was different. Margaret, let me ask you a question though. So you originally, with the company and then take the role of CEO, what was the vision for the company originally? And how has that potentially changed since you've taken that seat?
Look, I think Jesse set a very clear vision, which was to be the premium and organic leader in Canada. And I would say we're looking more, my vision is more about what we call elevating your day. So everything you do when you have a touch point with Rubicon, it's going to be a great quality touch point. So if it's a medical consumer trying our products, they're going to have a great experience for them. If it's a rec consumer, everybody's body processes cannabinoids slightly differently. So we want to acknowledge that, but we want to give people great experiences. And we also, when we say elevate your day, it's everywhere. So we're dealing with a customer, dealing with a supplier, dealing with a regulator, showing up for our investors or for our industry, for our people, how we treat them. It's always getting better.
Mhm.
I would say the vision is to have has that was originally set was to be the global organic and premium leader. I would say we're more now focused on building trusted brands, and building trusted and consistent products that deliver on those experiences. And
Mm.
how we're going to do that is not only through consistency of great quality products going out, but, and I'm going to give a shout out to Mickey here, it's also with world-class genetics. And where Rubicon wants to be is the genetic leader in Canada, to be on the forefront of that. We see the value of that just growing in the next 3 to 5 years. We don't think that the world yet understands the importance of that. And a lot of companies talk about genetics in terms of powdery mildew or yield or things like that. How are we talking about genetics, Mickey?
The best quality,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like, I want that true fire, and you're always chasing it. I feel very fortunate to be in a company that realizes the value of it and has given me the freedom to kind of run with it the way we have. And, I feel fortunate that we have some people that have really trusted us with their life's work, bringing it to life, people like Gas Down Dave. And, I feel, I just feel blessed,
Yeah.
and I think, you know, to me, we're in a weird place in the industry right now. Everyone's chasing volume. Everyone's chasing those dollars, right? And I think what's getting left behind is a lot of those really good genetics, and people are
Mhm.
passing them over, and, like, we're not going to make as much money. And feel that's true today, but I feel we haven't premiumized the way the industry will in the future. And I think that's when those genetics are going to become more and more critical. And, you know, like we've got some great ones in the pocket, you know, some ones with a little,
So the grins just come out on both of us. Yes.
they don't maybe grow with as much yield, but like, you know, there's some fire that I'm excited about for the future. So
Yeah.
And we've got a new facility that'll come online. We bought what was the first licensed facility in BC. We're very proud to be the new owners of a facility in Hope, BC.
Yeah.
It was called Canna Farms. Very honored to have that. And I think that there will be some genetics that in our hybrid greenhouse in Delta, which is, you know, our spiritual home, so to speak, and the home of our organic grow. There's going to be things that just never work in that environment that I know you're excited about being able to turn on in Hope in the indoor. So
yeah, like especially with the way Hope was built, it was built the way that a lot of legacy grows were built. And, you know, I feel that, you know, 1964 is all about bringing those old strains back. And I feel that one thing that's missing from some of those old strains not performing the way that they used to is they weren't grown the way they were used to. And genetics have, you know, become accustomed to be grown a certain way, and we put them in a completely different environment, you know, they tend to not perform as well, right? And I mean, we trial an insane amount of genetics, and I'm very fortunate that the company believes in being able to do that, because we hit on probably less than 2% of the genetics we bring in for what we commercialize, you know, like, you know, we're doing, you know, a huge amount of work in the background to bring you what we have. And, you know, I think,
future's looking bright.
future's looking bright. Yeah.
We call it Fight Club because we don't talk about Fight Club and what we've got behind the curtain. So and that's why Mikky hesitated there, because he started to think, oh, I'm on a podcast. I'm not just talking to Tom, right?
You know,
That's funny.
like, yeah, like it's, I hope the industry, you know, like we're not going to be able to do this alone. You know, it's going to take more than just us to help premiumize to that next level. And I hope that more and more people see the value in the flavors and the experiences that genetics deliver, and just not what they yield or what their THC percentage is, because, you know, that's just a small part of what genetics are. And, you know, I feel, you know, the way that we approach it is probably different than a lot of the way that people approach it in the industry. And, you know, like I also, you know, I feel that one of the biggest differences between the legacy and the legal side right now is the genetics. You know, that's kind of what's holding us back. And, you know, I've kind of looked at, you know, like, you know, how do we catch up to that? And then how do we get ahead of that? Right. And I feel we're in that phase of just catching up to it right now. And, you know, the phase that really excites me is the next phase where, you know, hopefully we're the ones that are setting the standard and people are trying to get our genetics for the legacy side.
Yeah. That would be cool. But listen, you guys, it's like you guys are reading my notes. Okay, so first of all, I think the vast majority of my audience understand these episodes are unscripted. We didn't discuss what we're going to discuss, but you guys are
we didn't.
like,
No,
trailing into everything I wanted to ask. Okay, so let me back up a little bit, because there's a few things. Rubicon has been known for carving your own path. Like it's like the industry's doing this, and they're chasing potency, and they're chasing, you know, export, and they're trying to get full distribution across all of Canada and doing all these things. And yet Rubicon, you're over here going, that's hype. That's hype. How do you avoid the hype of the market and not chase it and continue on your own path?
I think there's a bit of a challenge that we have being a public company of being measured quarter over quarter. And we brought in 3 years ago a very experienced board of business builders and operators and strategists. And they've seen hype curves. They've got 20, 30, 40 years of experience. And, you know, they've said, you want to, you know, what do you guys want to do? Well, we said, we want to build global trusted brands that elevate consumer experiences. And, you know, elevate being a key word around here. Like elevate is us getting better every day, but it's also people having great experiences or relieving pain, etc. And they said, so you're not looking to sell hockey bags of weed. Like, we're not in the business, or we're not traders.
I love that
And
reference,
we
by
talk
the
about
way.
that all the time. We're not in the business of selling hockey bags of weed. And that's a great business, but it's not our business. What we want to do is build loved brands that are on shelf for 30 years. And I probably shouldn't use this expression, but my kids, when they're adults, to be clear, will go into stores And they'll be so proud to see those brands that we contributed. And your kids are going to have the same experience. And they're going to be able to say, look what my mom and dad did.
Mm.
And build the next Molson Labatt's. I'm wearing a vest that's got Arc'teryx on it. It's a BC company. It's a
Love
beautiful
them.
premium company. They stand by what they do and they stay in their lane. And I
Mhm.
always say we want to be the Arc'teryx of weed, right?
Oh,
Do what you
wow.
do and be very proud of it and do it very well. So look, export, there's huge opportunity there. But we believe that Canada is the most competitive market in the world, maybe other than California or something like that.
Mhm.
Most competitive, sort of more legal market. Winning here demonstrates, like, we're not afraid of a fight. We're here to compete. We're going to play fair. And gosh darn it, like, we're the cheesy BC weed people. I think that's a good way of saying it. Like, but I do say, don't confuse my kindness for weakness. Just
Mm.
because we're nice people, we're out here to win, and we're proud of that. Competitive spirit is one of our values. Like, we want to have the best genetics. We want to have the best smoke. We want to have the best experience. So all of that comes from, really tone at the top. Our board says, get better every day. Mikky says that product's not good enough. Like, we're always seeking that. And I think that's kind of part of, like, the hustle
Mhm.
that we do. And it's sort of with people that really work out at Rubicon. And we've tried to talk about, why is it that some people really work well and some people, they find it a struggle, because it's often, shifting all the time. And we think there's something about that hustle and that desire for getting better.
Mm. Wow. I love the Arc'teryx reference because that puts things into perspective for those that understand the company. That puts things into perspective. So, I mean, you kind of touched on it and danced around. Not my question, but what I want to ask is in that setting, then, because there's a lot of things going on. You've got quality, you've got genetics, you've got distribution. What metrics do you, and especially as a publicly traded company, what metrics do you care about?
Quality. Qualities in every single, we just looked at each other and nodded. Every single meeting you have at Rubicon, we talk about quality.
Yeah.
And it's our first ballot. Like, I mean, I don't know what else. If you don't have sales without quality, you don't
Mm.
have people, you don't, and this comes to us talking about elevating, right?
Well, yeah, like we want our weed to sell itself. We don't want to have to sell our weed,
Yeah.
And I look at it as, my philosophy is we're always 70% of the way there. And we're always pushing to get to 100%, but we're never going to get there. This is such a
Mm.
new industry. No one's got this dialed in. No one has this figured out. There's no playbook on how to do this. And everyone's writing their own book. And, I feel that, you know, we have gone a different path than other people, but I think it's because collectively we've understood where mistakes can be made and just tried to avoid some of those. And, you know, I've seen throughout my whole life, chasing that quick dollar has never worked out. It's all about the
Mm.
long game, right? And,
Yeah.
we just want to be consistent. We want to grow the best quality. If it's not the best quality, we figure out something else to do with it. Like we, when I first started, we didn't have an R&D license. To literally try our product, we had to sell it to the store, go buy it, and then try it. And, I pushed that that's not the way to do it, right? And
Yeah.
I pushed for us to get the R&D license. And, for a while, it was just kind of me. And, we've now grown into a team of people that every week we grade every single batch that we grow before it gets released.
Wow.
And, it's not just my opinion now, it's the opinion of sometimes up to 10 people. And sometimes we have to make the hard decision of not putting it into our brands, but, we've built our brands on consistency. And, some of those conversations have been difficult,
Yep.
but they've been the right ones to have. And again, it's about the long game, not that short, quick buck, because we could have put that out, made a couple $100,000 more, but it could have ruined our reputation. And then we're not there in a couple of years, right? So
Yeah.
it's just been that slow and steady and just make sure we do things right. And yeah.
And
Well,
we've
that's
seen a lot of people do that, right? Like, where
yeah.
they've got the demand, so they fill it. Um, we really want to hold true to what we stand for and have our brand stand for something. So we want consumers to trust. We monitor. There's a couple things that we do that people don't know about. So organoleptic, a word that I can now spell and say. The organoleptic tasting panel, which is through the R&D license, as
Mhm.
Mikky said, every week, well, most weeks, there's a tasting panel and every batch gets, just to make sure it hits quality. That's critical. And, it actually is run through our quality team because it's done in a scientific measuring way, often blind. And then the other thing that we do is we track every single complaint, and monthly we look at the complaints
Mm-hmm.
and we talk about it openly. We look at root cause analysis, and if something's that, if our pre-rolls had a few complaints on them and it gets up to 20 per 100,000, then we look at that, we fix it, and then the next thing, the number 18 per 100,000 becomes your next biggest complaint, and you're
Mm.
always looking at getting better.
Yeah.
And so there's always something to improve on. I like to say we spend our money on two things: our people and our quality. And so
Nice.
if you need a
Nice.
tool and you need something to do, um, we're gonna to make your job better, to do it better, then we're gonna invest in that.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're not gonna do is have, gold-plated laptops and personalized lab coats and those things that aren't gonna move the needle, because we wanna put that money back in the jeans of our shareholders and of our people.
Yeah.
And if we incentivize them all the right way, we're all on the same team.
I love it. I love it. I mean, there's so many things, and I knew this was going to be this type of episode where there's so many truths in there that I want to extract. But let me come back. So I don't see. I mean, I haven't seen many complaints. You guys are saying you're analyzing complaints. I don't see any when it comes from Rubicon. I really
Oh,
don't. We've got
I can
we've
tell
got
you what's on the list. Like, I know them all, right?
yeah.
That's part of it.
But I mean, there's it's not like there's botrytis, or what they would say, there's mildew and mold in this weed or anything like this. Is sometimes it comes down to maybe the manufacturer or something like that. I get that. But let me come back to the genetics, because obviously you guys are big on genetics. Having Mikky there is, that's the grounding of this is how much we do believe in it. How does Rubicon's cultivation model, or how is it different from the other premium lane? Because to me, the way I see it, by the way, I love Harlequin, love, love, love it. But there's premium, and you could put Simply Bare in there. You could put 1964 in there. You could put Wildflower in there. But there's organic and then premium. What is the difference in that cultivation model that really sets Rubicon apart?
I mean, I so I think there's two secrets. There's a secret in our soil, there's a secret in our people, you
Mm,
know? And I feel, you know, we're trying to feed our soil, or we're trying to feed our soil, not our plant, right? And
mhm,
the organic side of things, when I came, to be fully transparent, I was like, well, no one, organic didn't matter in the legacy side, but I didn't understand organic the way that I thought I understood organic. And then
right.
realized that a lot of the best weed I've been smoking in the legacy side was in fact organic because of the living soil and stuff, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't certified because, being on the legacy side, could you really
Yeah,
go
how are you gonna
certify
get
yourself?
that? Yeah. Hello, Health Canada. Could you certify?
Exactly, right? So, I feel that, we're one of a handful of people growing with living soil. We've
Mm,
developed our soil. We're always tweaking it. We're always working on it. And I feel that that's one of you know, our biggest secrets to success. And I also feel that, on that side, having the sunlight, like from the legacy side, you didn't want windows for the cops to see your weed. So
no,
you would
no,
never really
no.
grow in a greenhouse, right?
Yeah.
So, especially at the scale that we're at in Canada, Cali was a little different or whatever, right? But,
Mhm.
to see genetics, how they performed on indoor systems, and then just see how some of them have performed in the different terp profiles that have come from the sun. Sometimes they haven't been great. Sometimes they've been wonderful, right? But
Mhm.
again, why we hit on such a small percentage of the genetics, because we're super picky about a whole bunch of different things. And I
Yeah.
think the other secret is the passion of the people we have. And I feel that my whole life, I've seen a bunch of people try to do this. Again, as I said, as a 9 to 5 job, and, think it was easy, see the easy money, like, I'm going to be rich. I'm going to be a gangster. I'm going to wear chains and have 22s and whatever it is, right? That drives you. And, the people that I've always seen be successful, the people that have the passion for the plant. And I feel that it's not just me in this company, it's the majority of the people that we work with have that true passion. And I think that passion is what drives the quality. It drives to want to be better. And, I feel, you know, I feel personally that I'm always chasing, like
Mm.
I always look back at the best weed experiences I've had in my life. And it's not just the flavors, but it's the high, it's the experience that goes around it. And how can we deliver that? And, I think once you've tasted that and had that experience, you're always going to chase. And I feel that what we do is we give people access to that experience, and then we always push it to be better.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that, part of the roundabout questions that I wanted to ask was how do you preserve that customer loyalty? But again, it comes back to the quality and ensuring that the products are there. I mean, you're analyzing what are the complaints, how do we improve, and consistent improvement. Um, and I don't think all companies are doing that, but there are some that are doing it, but they're failing at doing it as well because there's so many distractions rather than focusing, like you say. And I remember early days, like Health Canada was completely against living soil. I don't know when that changed exactly, but I remember out of the gate, they're like, yeah, this, we just can't get on board with this for whatever reason. Thank God they did, because here we are. But I'm curious, what is what do you wish that consumers or even bud tenders understood better about organic versus premium?
I mean, I wish, like I wish everyone could just experience the difference in taste.
Yeah.
I think that's ultimately
Terpenes is
yeah.
kind of the key. I was going to say
Put,
terpenes is the key word, like the difference of the sunlight with the living soil. It organic wheat has to be our wheat has to be premium to sell. Full stop.
Mhm.
Just
Yeah.
because it's organic doesn't mean you get to just stamp organic on something. But taste and what you said is, when people walk through the greenhouse and they see the beauty that's in there, the power of the sun, the soil, the love, all of those things. Plus, it produces this absolutely incredible effect. I was touring somebody around from the U.S. recently, um, and he was like, "Wow, I can smell every different plant." And we don't just grow living soil, monocrops. We actually grow what we call rainbow crops because, from a
Mm.
commercial perspective, we always want to make sure we have the freshest product coming down for our consumers. So every crop will have, you know, for example, if there's 20 rows, there's two white rainbow, two, I'm worried I'm going to say names that aren't released yet. Two blue dream, two Fruit Loops, and or Congo, and that actually makes it even harder. So we've been
I was gonna say
developing
that would make it
better
really tough.
all the time. When you think about large tomato crops or
Mm.
large vegetable greenhouses, firstly, there's been a 200, 300 years, or I guess 200 years of study on agriculture. We haven't had
Mhm.
any of that in cannabis. Plus, they tend to grow a mega facility with one type of crop. We're actually making it hard on ourselves doing living soil plus changing up the plant. But what we're doing is showing that A, it can be done. I'm really, really proud of it, and doing the hard thing and doing the hard work to create that best consistent experience for your consumer is amazing, but it's also really fun to see people when they walk through and then they go into the cure room and you can smell the flavors and you can feel it and taste it, and it's really incredible.
Mhm.
and
Wild.
I feel that you know, like anything organic can be done well and it can be done poorly. And, like I feel that our product speaks for itself,
Yeah.
and I feel that that's, why it's always been important for us to get our product into as many people's hands as we can, like why the focus was always on Budtenders and getting them to try our products because we wanted them to be able to stand behind a product that they were selling and recommending. And,
Mhm.
I think it's been seen through, the kind awards and stuff, which is voted on by the Budtenders that, we have some good loyalty and, I love that, and I love, ultimately there are representatives for most people there who's simply there in 1964 is that bartender at the store recommending it to that person, right? And, it's why we bring them through tours and, it's just, it's super important for us to, to share not only our story, but why we do things and, what the future looks like so that they could be proud of what they know about us and, proud to tell the consumer, and recommend it. And,
Yeah.
I think, organic's always that kind of mystified word, whether it's in fruit or meat or whatever, right? And, organic doesn't necessarily mean premium, but I'm proud for us that organic is premium. And I'm proud that we've shown that it can be done in a greenhouse. The amount of people that can't believe our wheat is even grown in a greenhouse blows my mind. What it is, and, as Margaret said, like, we grow some crazy rainbow crops. Like, I don't know, for everyone out there, our facility is 125,000 square foot greenhouse. We have 5 flower rooms. And, on the low side, we'll do 6 genetics in there. On the high side, maybe 12 in one of those rooms. We have about 25 genetics in various states of ramp up, ramp down, commercialization. So it's kudos to our cultivation
I was
team
gonna
and their
say, man,
planning
like
team.
I'd go crazy. You remember, I came from compliance and having to
Yeah,
label all the plants, and I'd be like, "Oh my god, who's doing this? Like, can we please
yeah.
organize this?" Let me ask you something then about, because when you're talking premium, you mentioned, getting it into the hands of the bud tenders. There's this weird conversation throughout the internets and whatnot of, bud tenders can't afford premium, so they can't sell your product. And I'm sorry, and it comes down to, what they're being paid and their salary. I tend to disagree, but I want to get your take on it if I could, and understand where is that coming from, because sampling still happens. I get it. You guys may be a little bit more active in the industry with ensuring that, bud tenders in the industry know about your product and your grow process. But can you touch on that for me for a second? I just want to get your thoughts on it.
I'm gonna start in on that one and say budtenders tend to be the connoisseurs, and they can work in store and get a lot of them can afford to buy weed because some of them they might have some discount or something like that. Um, we want to make sure we get them the experience. They are our biggest advocates. We want to earn their trust. We work for them, right? I think you
Mm,
have to put that in perspective. And we work for our consumers. So of course we want to give them the opportunity, and we're proud to. I think that's really, really important. I often say with our strains, with our products, we're constantly bringing new strains to market. You may try, say, I mean, this definitely didn't happen, so I'm gonna use Pink Drip as an example from Gastown. Um, it's an amazing strain, but it grew beautifully in living soil under the sun. But somebody may pick it up and be like, "I don't really love that strain," and it's from
mm,
Simply Bare. But they're gonna appreciate that it was beautifully grown and it was a beautiful experience. And it might not be their strain, it might give them an effect they don't love, but they can still respect the fact that it was beautifully done. And I think that's a really key part of what we do in terms of linking genetic and organic and consistency and trust. And
mm.
I think all of those have equal weighting, but all of those to us are the definition of quality, right? So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
then you get into flavor preferences and experience. There's beautiful Merlots and there's beautiful cabs, and whether it's wine or you want to use beer or scotch or whatever you want to use as an example, everybody's going to have their personal flavor profile.
Hmm.
For us, it's how can we earn the trust, and I say earn because it is earned, of bud tenders to stand behind our product and be proud to sell it. And that's what we have to do. That's our challenge. So getting them to taste it is a huge part of it.
Yeah. I can
Yeah.
align with that. It's funny. Sorry, Mickey. I went into a dispensary just the other day, and it's my local dispensary, and one of the bud tenders that I just love. He's so informed. He's wearing this beautiful Simply Bare hat, and I'm like, oh my god! I go, Margaret and Mickey are on the podcast this week. He knows that I have the podcast. He's like, that's fucking awesome, and I'm like, no, your hat is. Where do I get it? And
We'll fix
so
that.
anyway.
Was it one of the cream ones?
Yeah. No,
Okay,
yeah,
they just came
it
out.
was a cream colored one with the
It's
Simply
Simply
Bare
Bare.
color on it. I'm like, oh my God, I'm in love with that. But and it's not so much that I'm not trying to get free product or anything like that. I'm just like, he stands behind Simply Bare so much. And if I looked at, well, I'll bring this back to my own side. I've chased a childhood dream forever to own a Porsche 911 Turbo. I will have one day, but it doesn't mean that I don't love it. I can't appreciate the craftsmanship and what the brand has built. I'm just not there yet. So, I realize that, we're talking, 35, $50 versus 175,000. But the difference is that you may not be in that place necessarily, but you can still appreciate something for its premium nature.
Yeah. I think one of the things that we need to do is make sure that we're looking at providing offerings for people at all price points so that
Hmm.
you can have your small experience, maybe just a 1 gram joint or a half-gram joint of Simply Bare to get that experience. And that's the challenge. Sorry, Mickey, over to you.
Well, yeah, I was also going to say that, maybe they can't afford it on an everyday basis, but when they treat themselves, they'll always remember
Yeah.
that. And they'll remember that
Yeah.
experience. Like, hey, I'm going to this concert, so I'm going to buy Simply Bare or whatever. And then, you know, like your Porsche, it gives them something to maybe aspire to. Like, you know, I've talked to a
Yeah.
lot of Budtenders that, you know, are like, I can't wait, you know, till I can afford to do that every day and whatever. But, you know, like it's little things that are driving them to get to that next level. And maybe, you know, for some small part, like I want to smoke better weed tries to get you to that next level, because it did for me,
Yeah.
you know, when I was younger. And, you know, I didn't smoke the best weed my whole life, you know, like I started somewhere, but, you know, as soon
Yeah.
as I had that taste, it drove me to want that. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, how
Yeah.
do I get that? You know, how do I
Yep.
get that experience on a more regular basis? What do I have to do? Right. And it's the same thing here on the legal side, is that it pushes me for us always to be able to deliver that experience of like, well, I know what it is and I know what I want to deliver. So how do we ensure we always do that? And whether it's for the consumer that can afford or smoke our product once a year, or the consumer like, you know, Pink Drip. I ran into two people in the space of 5 minutes that literally one person was showing me their 40 jars of Pink Drip they had
Real?
bought. And then the other girl was like, oh my God, here's my picture of 24 jars, but thinks they're like bought, right? And it's just like, you know, they're like, where do we get the ounces? You know, like you can stop
Wow.
doing this to me, right? But,
Yeah.
you know, there's the opposite end of the scale, but they're both our customers, they're both our consumers. And I want the experience to be just as great for the person who tries it once a year as the person that tries it every day, right?
Yeah.
So.
I love that,
Well, it
Mickey. That
comes
makes a
back
lot
to
of
a couple
sense.
of our strongest strains, like our first two strains that we had in the greenhouse were Creek Congo and Blue Dream. And Blue Dream is still a beautiful seller. It's still my favorite strain. I get in trouble for saying the same strain for 5 years, but it's because
I was
it's
gonna
such
say,
a
when
good
we talked, you
smoke.
were talking about Blue Dream and how much you loved it.
Okay, and then well, I've moved a lot to Fruit Loops, but Creek Congo, it's a very low yielding plant, and I think a lot of
Mm,
companies would say, "Well, we're not going to produce it." And we had so many people asking us to bring it back. We brought it back. We just put it in BC, small little drop, because it costs us to not
mm.
grow something that. But we felt that it was so important to listen to our consumers and the budtenders, and it was really fun to see the reaction to it and be like, "Oh, all Congo's gone." You know, it was there when there was only so much, and I actually took a few people and walked through the facility and was like, "I can't wait to go see that Congo growing again because I know what it looks like." I remember that. I remember being in there for the first harvest, cutting down the first plants. You know, we've
Wow.
all been there. We've all done some trimming. We've all done all the processes, and I think that's part of the love of what we do.
Yeah. I
And,
love
you know,
it.
like,
So, one of the
I
things I
was just
want to
gonna
ask
say,
is, go ahead, Mickey.
I just want to say one thing about Blue Dream and Congo.
Yeah.
Blue
Yeah.
Dream, our longest selling strain and probably our best selling strain of all times, 18% THC.
Thank you. High
Wow.
five. High five.
Congo, we're
Hey,
lucky
that's
to hit
me all
18%
day long now. That's,
THC.
yeah. That's,
You know what I
well, and
mean?
that's,
Like,
yeah, totally. Totally. And I think
Terpenes.
that's why I fell in love with Harlequin. When I went out, I'm like, okay, I want a true one-to-one. What's out there? I think I even posted and everyone was backing Simply Bare, Simply Bare, Simply Bare. There's probably 20 comments from different bud tenders and you name it across the industry. And I'm like, sold. Went and got it. I'm like, now I know why. And right. So send me when we can do this offline, obviously, but send me pictures of the Congo because I want to see what that looked like.
yeah,
If you have them, I'm sure you do, because it rubs against everything, Mickey. Going back to those old days, we produced for yield and potency in a lot of cases. That's how we made, you know, what we did. But that's the way things went on, right? And for especially a publicly traded company to go, no, our consumers love this. We're going to bring it back, even though the yields aren't there. It's maybe not, maybe it's a loss leader in some cases, but our consumers will be happy. That takes a lot of gusto to do.
Well, it's not a loss leader. We still make money on it. So
Okay,
I
good.
don't want to, we're
Yeah,
not
yeah,
tagged
we're
because we're
publicly
tagged in the
traded here. We need to be careful. Yeah.
yeah. No, no, but it's also about brand building and listening to our consumers and
Mm,
showing. So I think to get serious on the business side of it, um, that's the kind of thing that builds lore and builds equity with people to say, not only do we listen, but we have these things in our genetic bank. We can bring them back. Like Lime Mojito was with us for a long time. We pulled it away. We've now moved to Fruit Loops. It's kind of was kind of the replaced for that.
okay.
I get more people that ask for lime mojito, and I
Hmm.
found some 2023 lime mojito in my house. I think it was 2 weekends ago, and I was home alone, and I was like, "Why is this still amazing?" Like, it was a pre-roll, it was perfect,
Wow.
and it goes to show a beautiful cure, a well-produced product, it can still deliver a
Hmm.
2-year-old fantastic experience, and I think, again, it just speaks to quality, and, we've got those genetics in the bank, and that's what's fun.
I love that. When the next time I make it out to Delta, I want to see the genetics
Yeah.
bag. I'm coming by the facility. The last time I was there, it was just, a month and a half ago, and it was a whirlwind tour, but I'm coming to Rubicon for sure. Let me ask this. We've already established you don't chase trends in the industry, but I am curious what trends excite you, potentially, if they do. I don't know, maybe they don't, but also what might worry you when it comes to trends?
I need
You go first because I'm going to go with the business trends and you go with the.
for us, like honestly, like we chase flavors, we're not necessarily going, we need a Skittles or we need a gelato. It's like, well, what is Skittles and what is gelato?
Mhm.
And, why do people like them? And, you know, without getting into too much, it's,
Geek out. Come on, geek out on it. It's great.
like, when we hunt genetics, we hunt them by number. So no one knows what they are. So we're actually trying to get the
Mhm.
best expression of the flavor we're looking for. We're not just chasing that name, right? And I think where a lot of people fall into traps is like, we need that Zusha, we need that Skittles, and they focus on that one thing. But if that one thing doesn't work, they go, oh. And, as I said, we hit on about 2% of our genetics because we're like, well, what is a gelato? It's like, a fruity, gassy kind of strain. So let's bring in 20 fruity gases and see which is the best expression of that flavor that we can get out of the greenhouse, right? And I think that's how we kind of avoid the trends and maybe set our own trends in a way.
Mhm.
And, I think the thing that scares me about trends is that one of my favorite parts about weed is the different flavors. While I'll have my go-tos, like, that I'll always smoke, I love trying new things. And I worry if everyone focuses on chasing names, like everyone's chasing Zushi right now or whatever, right? You're going to have 100
Yeah.
producers trying to grow the same cut. And, some are going to grow well, some are not going to grow well.
Yeah.
Or if they were chasing it, you might have 100 different strains. And I'm a big believer in, certain genetics just won't work in certain systems. And if
Mm.
people hunt for the genetics that work best in their systems and the way that they do things, they're going to grow way better weed than trying to fit something that doesn't really work in their system. I feel that chasing trends is going to kill the diversity in genetics. It's going to kill that hunger. It's going to kill that yearn for, what's new, what's next. And that's honestly what drives me. Like, I'm so excited when we hunt genetics. Like, when we harvest for the first time I can try it, it's like Christmas, and it's
Yeah.
just,
The true story about it. This is true.
You're
Yeah.
bringing
like
back
if
my days of pheno hunting going, "Oh, man, I was like a kid in a candy store waiting for those to come to harvest."
well, that's it, right? And and I feel like, yeah, I feel so blessed to have the job I have. I feel so blessed that I get to do what I get to do what I love every day,
Yeah.
and I appreciate that, right? And
Yeah.
and
Well, you
that's what
touched on
drives me to
something.
always deliver the best to the consumer too, right? So
Totally. And that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's what's important. And Margaret, we're going to get to your side on the business side, but you brought up a very valid point, and we've noticed this for the longest time. But and I'm going to ask another question as well. I do these big Howard Stern walkarounds, but I didn't realize I did until I talked to Mitchell Osak, and he's like, "You do these Howard Stern things," and I'm like,
I love
"Fuck,
it,
I
Joe. Love
do."
that.
I'm like, "Damn, I do. I didn't realize I do." But okay, so when it comes to chasing those strains, those cultivar names, it's like a school of fish moving through the ocean. It's all they're over here, they're doing this one now, they're doing this one. But I've also seen, and I just want to get your take on it, Mickey, is we know this happens. I would assume, and I can pretty much guarantee Rubicon does not do this. But oh, this is we've got, let's say you got the Skittles, it's already harvested, it's done, it's cured, it's dried, ready to go. But now this trending strain pops up. Now let's just rename it this, and then it goes out the door. What the is going on in this industry? Like seriously, they're just doing wrong by the consumer for sure. But is it not bastardizing everything we stood for?
like I I think a lot of it is born out of necessity. And I think,
Mm,
what holds us back, really holds us back on the legal side is the access to genetics.
mm,
And, it's hard, you know, it's hard to find strains. It's hard to find the only ones to launch strains. Like, we've been so blessed that we have friends that we do that have allowed us to be the only, like every single one of our genetics, the exact cut that we launched of it, we're the only ones on the legal industry with that,
wow.
and we prided ourselves on that. It's been a very important part of, who we are and what we do,
Respecting the
right?
legacy of it. Yeah.
And, we've changed things like, taking letters out and stuff to appease Health Canada, you know, for certain my mojito, we had to make what M apostrophe JTO. Like
Yeah.
we had to do things like that. But, you know, I feel that, you know, while a lot of people are doing it, it's because a lot of people have access to only the same of small amounts of genetics, and the
Mm,
boards won't take them. And, you know, like, oh, you've got, you know,
Well, we can't judge that.
we
Like,
can't, right? Because it's just
yeah.
it's the handcuffs that we're in the
yeah,
industry,
yeah.
right?
Okay.
I get it, right? Because, you know, someone might be, you know, one of 100 people that bought clones from someone, because there's so few people to buy clones. They grow it and they spend 6 or 7 months, and then all of a sudden the boards won't take it because, you know, I'm
Ah,
gonna
yeah.
make up a name that's, you know, like, you know, alien animals, you know, like 100 people have alien animals, and, you know, well, we can't sell alien animals, but we have 50 kilos of it, so we're gonna call it Jurassic Park because no one sold Jurassic Park yet, right? And,
Right,
you know, I
right.
think a lot of it isn't done maliciously you know, to, you know, against the consumer or whatever. I believe a lot of it is happening out of necessity. You know, obviously there's people that will always rename things for the sake of renaming it and trying to be on those trends.
Mhm.
And I think that's different. I believe a lot of what's happening in Canada on the legal side is out of necessity. And that's something that Health Canada has to look at, right? Because, you know, it's tough to compete, you know, it's tough to compete against a legacy side. It's tough to compete against an international side that's getting fed from California with
Mhm.
such a small access to genetics, right? And, you know, that goes back to that, you know, everyone chasing the same things. Well, you know, you have the people supplying the genetics to everyone chasing those few small names too. So you're just shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, right? And into a market that wants diversity. And,
Yeah.
you know, it just becomes tough to be successful in an industry that's extremely tough to be successful in, right? So,
Yeah. You brought up some really good points. I never really looked at it from the, you know, the genetic side and what Health Canada allows and the movement of the genetics in and out of the market. I still remember the, you know, the early onset days of when Health Canada kind of just went, just get your genetics already, and they turned the blind eye to it. Just get them because, you know, it was very difficult out of the gate. But okay, back to trends, Margaret. Business side, what trends are you excited about, and what ones are scary?
So I'm excited. There's a big, massive trend that just we ticked over a major milestone in Canada this year, where pre-rolls are now bigger than flower. I'm excited about that because, well, on one hand, I'm not, because I love when people can see the expression of our flower, and I love the
Yeah.
ritual around rolling your own and everything. But you know, I think that shows convenience. It shows trust in the product. And it shows that consumers are moving more and more into the legal market, and that makes me super happy.
Mm.
I think the trend towards all-in-one in vape, and we just launched our first ever all-in-one product, where consumers have different use cases. So they have their carts that they're putting into their battery and they're changing them out, but they're also bringing with them their small little slip in their pocket all-in-one for
Yeah.
certain different occasions. And I think those two big, like, in the Canadian market, those are the things that I'm really excited about, and I think brand and trust in brand is getting there so that consumers are starting to purchase by
Mm.
brand.
Yep.
You know, I would say this time last year, I was saying, we're focused on Canada because the shelf in Canada is being built in the next 12 months, we believe. In June, all of a sudden, I looked up and went, the shelf's been built. Getting back on the shelf, you know, is going to be really hard. I think it was 2 weeks ago at the OCS Supplier Day, and my numbers might be slightly off, so somebody feel free to correct me. They have about 5,200 SKUs. They're planning to go down to 4,500 SKUs.
Wow.
So if you're not out there now in Canadian shelves, you're going to struggle. That's the largest market in the country. So
Mhm.
staying true to satisfying your Canadian customer, by customer, I mean not only the OCS and the provinces, the retailers, the budtenders, and the shopper and the consumer. You got to stay focused on that because, again, that's building brand, not selling hockey bags of weed. And we're
Mm.
here to build brand and trust, things that our families can look back on and say, we built that.
Yeah.
And so I think, you know, I'm excited about that for us. I think people that have left the market, the Canadian market, in the last 12 and 18 months and not gone into the stayed in the channel, the cost of onboarding a sales and marketing team, rebuilding those relationships, the packaging, all of the relationships that you have to rebuild, it's very expensive if you let it go. And it's really hard financially to swallow that pill again. So
Yeah.
I think with export, we're going to see a lot of excitement over the next 10 and 20 years, but it's going to be chunky. So
Hmm.
if you don't have a bread and butter business that's stable, it's going to be some feast and famine.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think that to me is the watch out for people is make sure you're looking at how are you keeping yourself safe? How are you building your consistency, your channels, um and that's what worries me, and that's what worries me in the Canadian market. I think another trend that I am excited about, we were just talking about it this morning, is there's not new facility turning on around the world. And a quality facility, I would say, like high premium facilities. So there's not been capital out there. So if you're not sitting on premium cannabis assets, as Europe is turning on for medical patients, as
Yeah.
the world is changing, where is the high quality product going to come from? It's going to
Hmm.
come from Canada. And we're going to have, today we've got 15,500 kilos of annual production capacity of premium. Now, we still have to turn on hope, and I've got to stop talking about it like it's the word hope. We had some feedback that we're actually doing an internal challenge to rename our facilities, so we're having a bit of fun with it. But if you're not situated now, other than really small facilities, I don't think there's capital out there to build them. And
Yeah.
even if they did, it's going to take them a while. And that makes me really excited for the team we have and the assets we have and the know-how. I mean, we have to remember, and we as Canadians need to be so proud of the know-how we have in this industry. And whether Mr. Prime Minister Carney wants to hear it or not, we are a GDP builder for Canada. We are number 14 in
Yes.
in terms of industries. We are ahead of the dairy industry. People don't know that. Um, they have a lot of power. Let's get cannabis some of that power. Let's show the world what we can do. We can have major head offices here. And so let's go out and do it. And that's where I get, I talk about genetics, I get excited, but when I start talking about creating economic power for Canadians,
Hmm.
longevity, global know-how, all the rest of that, that makes me really excited because it's the economics of it are so amazing. And I just
Yeah.
would hate us to miss that opportunity.
Well, you've every interaction I've ever had, it's evident that you are an incredible advocate for that. Canada should be leading the way. There's just no reason we shouldn't. Before we wrap, I want to get your thoughts on we're talking export. I understand the mainstay supplying Canada, making sure that the business and operations are successful here. There's recent news out of Germany with potential clawback or drawback on the medical side. Does that show what the industry could potentially do globally if if other regions take the lead from Germany? Like, are we
We're
concerned at
talking
all?
about
Are
the
you
telehealth.
concerned?
Are you talking
Yeah,
about the
yeah. Well,
telehealth?
there's the telehealth side, but then there's also some. If you read between the lines, I don't know that the government is huge. The incoming government is huge on cannabis. Um, but yeah, I'm curious with from your seat, Margaret. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's just a matter of time, and it's
Mm,
very natural that there's ebbs and flows of this, and that's where we talk about the chunkiness of what's gonna happen.
yeah.
The cat's out of the bag. The consumer and the patient are clearly there. The medical community is clearly there. There's still gonna be stigma. So whether there's stops and starts with governments, we've gotta look and as we talk about, let's not plan quarter over quarter. I mean, we do obviously, but let's look wider at where this industry is going and uh, that doesn't concern me at all.
Hmm.
I think there's even talk of Australia, certain states potentially going adult use legal, which would really surprise me, but would be fantastic. I think the bigger thing is countries are going to look to protect jobs in and protect the economics into their country.
Yeah.
So, is all of our outdoor weed going to be able to compete with outdoor Colombian from a cost-based perspective going into oils that ship into Europe in the long term? Maybe, but maybe
Mm,
not.
yeah. Yeah.
And it probably more likely not. So look at if you're looking at being in this game for between 5 and 20 years, where do you have a right to win? Stay focused on where you have a right to win. Get really, really good at it.
Hmm.
Protect your flank. You got to play some defense, but get really, really good at what you do and become the world leader in it. And there's space for the likes of little old us to come out there and just put in the work. You
Yeah.
know, this isn't happen because you want it to happen. Nobody's going to hand you $1 billion anymore. Get out there, do the work, learn the lessons, figure it out, have some resilience, and get great people around you. Because, you know, we talk about Rubicon. We want to be the opposite of Tesla, where you think of Elon Musk.
Yeah.
What's so important? Like, I want to do this conversation with Mikky because I recognize his knowledge and his importance to
Hmm.
Rubicon. You know, we are a team, and we want you to think of our brands and the greatness of it. We want people to come work here because of everyone and how fantastic it is, and that we're working to get better every day. And I think Canada and the industry in Canada should stop some of the infighting and look at the bigger picture.
I always ask my guests to drop some wisdom. You've just dropped some incredible wisdom there, Margaret. I appreciate that. But Mikky, drop some wisdom on us. Where do you see Rubicon and the industry in the next 5 to 10? Margaret kind of touched on, you know, the long term, but I'm curious from your perspective, where do you see it?
I mean, I see it from a few different sides. For one, I want us to be the leader in genetics. You know, I want people to want what we have. I want our stuff to be the newest, hottest stuff on the shelves, stuff that we've bred, stuff that's, just ours. And, where I want to see us grow, there's two sides of it. I want to see the Canadian industry grow, but I want to see the BC industry grow. Like,
Mm,
BC bud used to mean something,
yep.
and it doesn't anymore, like on a global scale, right? And, as you look at, export and the future of it, and, you know, to put it bluntly, everyone's going to grow their own mids, and, it's the premium side is going to get exported, just like wine and, everything else, all,
Yep.
luxury goods, right? And, how do we position ourselves to be that? And how do we position BC to be one of those regions around the world that is known for quality, right? And,
Mm,
I think like everything, there's going to be genetics that we grow in BC that are going to grow better here than anywhere else in the world. So how do we find those genetics, and how do we tell the story and share the experience with people around the world so that, we can become that global leader? And it starts in Canada. If we can't do that in Canada, we can't do that in BC. There's no hope in us being that world leader. And, I also believe firmly that we can't do it alone. And Margaret touched on the infighting and stuff. Like, we don't even speak the same language yet,
mm,
and it's going to take a bunch of us to sit down at a table, talk about how we measure quality. Just how I measure quality is different from how you measure quality, and from Bob and Al and whatever. But, like wine, until we all speak that same language, we're not going to really be able to drive the industry there. And, I'm happy to have the conversation with anyone, anytime, and talk about quality, talk about grading. And, I'd love for a bunch of us to get around a table and sit down and really figure out how we can make BC, that mecca of weed from Canada, and that place around the world that people want to get weed from. And, I always go back to, 20 plus years ago, I was in Florida trying to find weed. And we tried for like 2 days to find weed. And we finally found some guy that would sell us weed. And he brought us this black shit, like, or trash. Like, I can't say the word.
Awful.
Like, and it was $100 US for the eighth. And I'm like, bro, I can't buy this. And he was super insulted. And we started talking for a minute. And like, bro, like, I'm from BC. And he's like, oh, he's like, I've heard of that place. You didn't eat up there. And I'm like, yes. And like, that's what I want it to be again, And
yeah.
again, it's as much as I want us to be there, I want us as an industry in BC to get there, because I truly believe it's going to be a lot tougher for us to do it, any of us to do it, unless we get on the same page.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, who can't get behind that? I mean, that's the promo right there. I mean, what else do you need? It's a matter of, you're right, BC, previously, and I still think even to this day, you're being a little bit hard on, where BC sits when it comes to quality cannabis throughout the world. But you're right. I mean, as competing markets come online, there's more producers. Um, the competition's stiff, and I think in this case, continuing that, carrying that torch, and ensuring that, Canada number one, but also BC has its place in the global cannabis market. Why not Rubicon? You guys just carry that torch, continue to do so. But I do thank you very much for joining Legacies. You've dropped some incredible wisdom for us all. Anytime, you're always welcome here. Anytime, Margaret. One of the things that I've always caught is you make this personal recommendation. It'd be lost on me if we didn't do it on Legacies. If you could, please.
Absolutely. So today, what's my favorite product? Well, I always go back to my Fruit Loops edibles from
Mm,
Simply Bare, but I'm not going to give that as my recommend today. Those are my go-to. I have recently been having our all-in-one comatose. I've just tried it. It's just come out. It just my brain is always on, and it has just slowed me down to a place where I really, really need to go. So I'm
Okay.
not usually a big vapor, but it's been pretty. It's been fun to try. What about you,
Yeah.
Mickey?
I mean, for me, I think, you know, Sunset Runts has been
Do sunset runs.
one of my favorite genetics that we've ever grown. Like Runts just loves our greenhouse, and that cut again from Dave, Gas Down Dave, is fire. And you know, we just dropped the Lemon Loops again, another
Both in Simply Bare.
both at Simply Bear, another genetic from Dave, and both of them are super fire. I know he's proud of what we did, and you know, I'm even more proud that we know we could bring those to life and bring his brand into the legal market for him, and you know, and just deliver those genetics the way they did. And you know, I think we trialed roughly 30-ish genetics from him, and
Wow.
so you know, we definitely you know, there was some tough decisions, but I feel like, yeah, like the Sunset Runs honestly is just, yeah.
Love it. Love it.
Well,
And I know
you
that
that
the
too. You saw that too, Tom.
yeah,
Well,
well,
yeah,
I know
whatever we
the
come.
all-in-one just dropped and the like everyone is just going crazy. There was actually because I posted on LinkedIn that I'm sitting down with you guys today and someone said, I really hope they talk about the new Comatose all-in-one.
Yeah.
So, and here it is, personal rec. Until Mickey mentioned his. So you've got two in a way today, Margaret.
I was gonna say one thing about the all-in-one too is like, I think to me, there's two sides of it. There's
Mm,
the one that it's, you know, I see how popular it's become with that new generation of people. Like, you know, there's people now that are what, 27, they've only grown up with weed being legal, be able to go buy it in the store.
yeah.
But to me, the next level of the all-in-one is being able to deliver the experience the way we want to deliver it in a vape. With a
Mm,
510, you leave so much to the consumer of like, you know, the different voltage, different heat and whatever, but really be able to work with active on that device with them to really deliver and tweak it to deliver the experience that we want consumers to get when they consume it, right? And you
mhm,
know, a lot of work went into it. That's why it lagged behind our other dates by a while, is because we wanted to get it right. You know, we wanted every aspect of it to be right, and it definitely led to some interesting conversations and stuff. But I'm happy we have those, and you know, I'm happy that we challenge each other, and we always challenge each other to be better. And you know, with everything we launch, once we launch it, we work on it to get to that next level
mhm,
too, you know? And it's like, you know, we know when we've launched it, we're happy enough to get it to that point, but we're always trying to make it better. And every one of our innovations, every one of our genetics, every time we grow it, every time we, you know, do a new pre-roll or, you know, just everything, it's always about how do we make this better and how do we make it better from a quality and how do we make it better from a process standpoint. So
And there will be new drops, new flavors coming in all in one. So I'm not going to give that all away yet, but they are coming through the fall. And I know we're pretty excited about those as well.
Well, it's certainly a testament as to what separates Rubicon Organics, that's for sure. I appreciate the personal recos.
Thank you so much, Tom. And I'll personally send you a package over, Tom, and
Ah,
send me your address after this. And just want to shout out to everybody who participates on this. I've watched your shows, and I want to say thank you for what you're doing for the industry because we need to build it together. We want
mm.
to see successful Canadian companies emerge consistently, and we need that pack to do it. And I got to tell you, there's some good competition out there for us. It makes us better every day.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it, and we'll talk soon. Don't worry, you'll get my mailing address because I want one of those
Aw-
hats. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
No problem.